When I finally got connected.
Any other question?
I'm sure.
Both sides go.
6 o'clock.
It didn't last long.
I will call the July 7th, 2025 meeting of the City Council in order. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Councilmember Rabe?
Here.
Dolly?
Here.
Armstrong?
Here.
Here.
Sones?
Present.
Lee?
Here.
Mayor Richardson?
Present. We'll move on to public comment. I do have one request here on items on the agenda. If there's some things you want to talk about, you're welcome to talk about those items on the agenda at that time. Bill, you want to talk about the EV grant a little bit here quickly? Give your name and address, Bill, even though we got it here.
Yeah. Bill Howard, 701 East 2nd Avenue, Indianola. Know a lot of you, don't know all of you, but I'm on the Sustainability Committee. And our last monthly meeting, we became aware of a block grant through the Iowa Economic Development for EV chargers. And we're working on a grant application. I got plenty. Grant application for this. And because the infrastructure is already there, part of the streetscape was done with this idea in mind. The south and the west parking lot both have the infrastructure, the underground infrastructure already in place for this. So it's a great opportunity. It doesn't cost the city a thing. Hopefully we can get enough support and enough points to win a grant for this. So I guess what I'm here for is to give you a heads up. We're going to be back the 21st as a committee. We'll be on the agenda asking for a resolution of support from the city council. So I guess I'm just giving you a heads up on it. So we think it's a great opportunity. We hope we're successful at this grant application. We're all kind of rookies at this, but hopefully maybe we're successful. So I just wanted to bring that up so everybody's aware of it. So
Thank you, Bill. Yes.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Absolutely.
Best of luck to you.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, anyone else wish to speak?
Is it about any topic?
Any topic?
And do we have to live within the city of Indianola to
No,
speak?
you don't necessarily, but it depends on what the topic is, I would say.
It's
But,
about the Kayakota?
we will be discussing that item
Okay.
down the agenda. If you'd like to
Okay.
speak at that
I
time,
will
that'd be fine.
My questions and thank you.
Okay. Anyone else wish to speak? Move on to consent agenda. Are there any items that need to be pulled? Otherwise, I'll take a motion to consider.
Mayor, yes. Staff is asking to pull item D2, the consideration of a special event permit for Hometown Pride Parade. This came back to council. It's a pre-approved event, but it came back to council because the route had changed significantly. But we learned today that the intersection now is open at Buxton and Clinton.
Yes.
And so the route does not need to change anymore. So we're asking to pull that item.
Pull item D2. Anything else? I take a motion for everything but D2.
So moved.
Motion is second. Is there any discussion? Let's call the roll, please.
Councilmember Rabe?
Aye.
Dolly?
Aye.
Armstrong?
Aye.
Beach?
Aye.
Sones?
Aye.
Lee?
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0. Item D2 then, let's have a little discussion here for a minute, and then we'll get the motion.
No, we don't need, it's just stricken from the
Oh, it's
agenda.
stricken from the agenda. Okay, do we need to make a motion to do that? Okay. All righty. Move on then to council reports. Do we have any committee reports?
I have a committee report for Catch Des Moines. We met middle of June for Q2. And the big thing we did was the budget for FY26. So the 25-26 budget has a 16.46% decrease in revenue. Part of that is a decrease in the hotel motel tax portion that they receive. But from a budgetary standpoint, it's about $1.4 million lower than normal. For the budget, they also kept occupancy projections at the 2024 to 2025 levels. And they are expecting 26 through 28 to be even tougher. Kind of why I say that is when we have our hotel motel tax discussions, those projections aren't looking great in terms of occupancy. So I think it's going to be important for us to be mindful on our distribution, how we distribute money, and making sure we don't overcommit and overpromise ourselves on those funds. Because even Catch Des Moines is very hesitant right now with the future occupancy levels going out through 2028. And keep in mind that's with the NCAA tournament coming in a couple years as well. So I just wanted to talk of that. And then Greg Edwards, he'll be there through July. And then he is officially retired. So anybody who ever got to know Greg, if you look at the Metro from when he started to what it is now, it's a complete change night and day. So kudos to him for everything he's done for the downtown, but also all the surrounding areas. So he's got a retirement event on August 1st. I sent that over to Jake so that he was aware, since I was not able to attend that event. So that is my Catch Des Moines report.
Thank you. Very good report. Thanks a lot. Anyone else have any other reports? Move on to item B then, receive and file the May 2025 Treasurer's Report. I did send an email out. Jackie, do you want to discuss that for a minute about there were two claims for, oh, that's not this time, never mind. That was on another thing. In your packet, you received some information, I believe it was on page 108 of the packet, some information on the 2025 fiscal information. And that's basically what this report is here. If there's any questions on that, now would be the time to bring it. Staff have anything to answer or suggest or say on this at all?
Treasurer's report we're working on right now, and we'll have wrap up FY25 so we can see where everything ends up.
Looks like most of the funds were falling within the 90 percentile
Right.
as we're nearing the fiscal year end.
And the other document that was presented there shows that staff's done a great job of looking to me like they've worked less and spent a lot less money, about $5 million is that what I'm looking at, I think on one of the documents here. So. Any other questions, comments? If none, we'll move on to the next item. Receive and file the May 2025 EMS billing activity
Have a
report.
motion.
I'm sorry, you do need a motion on item B, sorry.
Moved.
Second.
Motion second. Clerk, call the roll, please.
Councilmember Lane?
Aye.
Rave?
Aye.
Dalby?
Aye.
Armstrong?
Aye.
Beach?
Aye.
Stones?
Motion carries. I'm sorry. Got everybody. Thank you. Receive and file the 2025 EMS billing activity report. Do we have any questions for staff on that? Yes, ma'am.
Oh, no, just answer a question.
Okay.
If you have it.
No questions? I see none. Take a motion to approve.
So moved.
Got a
Second.
motion, a second. Clerk, call the roll, please.
Councilmember Beach?
Aye.
Stones?
Aye.
Lane?
Aye.
Rave?
Aye.
Dalby?
Aye.
Armstrong?
Motion carries 5-0. All right, Mayor, I'm sorry.
On that one,
Mhm.
the EMS billing activity report, we wondered if it would be okay to have it in the city manager's weekly report instead of on the council packet.
Staff have any, or the council have any objections to that?
No.
Okay. Okay, got it. All right, any update then? lot of things going on in the city of Indianola and surrounding areas for the month of July. National Balloon Classic Sky Parade is this Thursday from 5 to 8 on the square. Businesses will stay open later that day and try to support your local events. Warren County Fair is July 23rd to 28th. In the spirit of Park and Rec's month, a reminder that our Indianola Park and Rec staff will be at the county fair on Thursday the 24th for Park and Rec Day with their counterparts from other Warren County city departments. National Balloon Classic is July 25th through August 2nd. Lots of activities between those two things going on at the same time. Celebrate Warren County Parade, led by volunteers in Hometown Pride, is Saturday the 26th, starts at 10:30 a.m. and this will follow last year's route. Is that correct? That we just talked about, right?
It'll follow the old route, yeah.
Indianola Summer Arts Festival is organized by the Indianola Public Arts Commission. It's from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. on July 26th, 27th. It just shows that there's a lot of things going on. I would also remind everyone, if you're interested, that the Indianola Fine Arts Commission is having a sale for their paintings that were left in the Regions Building. A number of paintings in there that are by local artists in and around Iowa, as well as some regional artists. And that's from 8 to noon or 10 to 9 to noon, which is that?
8 to noon.
8 to noon on Saturday. That'll be in the Regions Bank, that lobby area there, so a lot of good things going on, and appreciate everything that, all the volunteers and everybody that's done things as well. Just to kind of finalize some things, since our last meeting, we've had some other things go on in the city of Indianola. Just kind of want to update everybody on a few of those as well. We had a great turnout from hearing from everybody on the disc golf tournaments and other things that have happened here in Indianola. We've had a number of businesses that have had ribbon cuttings, and that's great to see that we've had some expansion there as well. And so just a lot of things going on here this week and this month. So please participate if you can. We have a proclamation for Park and Recreation. I will read that proclamation now. It's for Parks and Recreation Month for 2025. Whereas the Park and Recreation Program contribute to a high quality of life in a community, and whereas these programs also provide friends and families the opportunities to spend time together, build strong bonds, and enrich their lives, and whereas the parks have a positive impact on the environment while providing health benefits to the residents, and whereas the Indianola community has many dedicated professionals and volunteers who diligently work behind the scenes to provide a variety of experiences that enhance and preserve the quality of life in Indianola, and whereas these individuals have created a community with an assortment of parks, trails, recreation facilities, activities that are modern, fun, safe, and attractive, highly valued by the community, enhance economic and neighborhood growth, and enhance the quality of life of our citizens. Therefore, I, Mayor Steve Richardson, do hereby proclaim July 2025 as Park and Recreations Month in the city of Indianola, and encourage our residents to enjoy these essential spaces and participate in programs the city offers. In witness thereof, I hereunto set my hand and cause the seal of Indianola, Iowa, this 7th day of July 2025. And I'm sure that Aaron will want a picture after the meeting here with Doug.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm sure you would, yes. All right. Item C on the mayor's report, approval appointment of Glenn Cowan to the Parks and Recreation Commission with a term beginning July 1, 2025 and ending July 1, 2028. I need a motion and a second.
So moved. Second.
A motion and a second, or is there any discussion?
Sure he has enough qualification.
I understand.
I think he's a fantastic fit.
I agree.
Clerk, call the roll, please.
Councilmember Lane?
Aye.
Ray?
Aye.
Dalby?
Aye.
Armstrong?
Aye.
Beach?
Aye.
Sones?
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0. Approval of the reappointment of Bob Greener to the Veterans Memorial Building Commission with a term beginning immediately and ending July 1, 2028. Need a motion and a second.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Clerk, call the roll, please.
Councilmember Ray?
Aye.
Dalby?
Aye.
Armstrong?
Aye.
Beach?
Aye.
Sones?
Aye.
Lane?
Motion carries 6-0. Approval of the reappointment of Brad Green to the Veterans Memorial Building Commission with a term beginning immediately and ending July 1, 2027.
So moved.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Clerk will call the roll, please.
Councilmember Lane?
Aye.
Wade?
Aye.
Dalby?
Aye.
Armstrong?
Aye.
Beach?
Aye.
Solons?
Aye.
I have a resolution of the City Council of the City of Indianola declaring support for the preservation of the federal TRIO program. I think we need to vote on this, is that correct? Or, yes, I need a motion and a second.
Second.
Motion and a second. Clerk call the roll, please.
Councilmember Ray?
Aye.
Dalby?
Aye.
Armstrong?
Aye.
Beach?
Aye.
Solons?
Aye.
Lane?
So here is the resolution. It's whereas the federal TRIO program, our federal outreach and student services programs, are designed to identify and provide services for those individuals from disadvantaged backgrounds such as low-income individuals, first-generation college students, and individuals with disabilities, whereas over 160 Simpson College students benefit from TRIO programs, and whereas Simpson generates an estimated $375,000 annually in college revenue through increased retention due to the TRIO programs. And whereas the current federal government administration desires to eliminate the federal TRIO programs, and whereas the City Council of Indianola, City of Indianola recognizes the importance of the federal TRIO programs in providing access to higher education for lower income, first generation and disabled students at Simpson College and beyond. And whereas the City Council of the City of Indianola strongly supports the federal TRIO programs and urges Congress to provide adequate funding for this program that demonstrates a proven track record of success. And now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of Indianola, Iowa, that we hereby encourage the members of Congress to protect TRIO programs from proposed cuts to ensure that all students have the opportunity to succeed in college and contribute to society. Be it further resolved that copies of this resolution will be furnished to all members of the Iowa Congressional Delegation and approved this 7th day of July 2025 by the Indianola City Council of Iowa. And I'm going to sign this. We have Terry Handley Ms. Greiner with us tonight from Simpson College, and if you want to get a photo, let's take that right now, shall we? Want to do that? Yeah. And we'll make sure you get a copy of the proclamation. How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm good as always. He's a little slow here. He's not prepared, believe it or not.
All right, new lens. Let me get up and close and personal.
Okay, there you go.
Here we go. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. Perfect.
Thank you. We'll get you guys a copy. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
You
sir.
bet.
How are you, young man? I'm well, good to see you.
Public consideration, next item on the agenda, old business, resolution approving a property deductible for ICAP. We have a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Looks like we have somebody ready to give us information, so.
Good evening, Mayor and members of council. Courtney Silliman, HR. Council had recently requested a review of property deductibles, specifically traffic control signals. We currently have 11 traffic control signals at a $5,000 deductible per occurrence. Our other property is at 30. We currently have 6 flashing stop signs at a $30,000 per occurrence deductible. Council could consider reducing that deductible to the flashing stop signs to $5,000 to match the traffic control signals. They are 2 separate things insured separately. Visited with the AP, and he estimates the flashing stop sign replacement would cost about $6,000 or so. Also recently visited with IMU Board of Trustees. Feel free, Councilwoman Soames, to speak up, but they were not in favor of reducing all property deductibles. That was something else that the council was considering. Reducing it from 30 to 5 per occurrence. IMU didn't see the value from the decreased deductible savings and the increase in premium to be able to do so. After thorough review, if council desires to change any property deductibles, staff recommends approving a $5,000 deductible for flashing stop signs instead of the $30,000 per occurrence that we currently have them under. This would cost the city $2,500 of additional premium, invoiced separately from the 25-26 ICAP renewal. All other property We recommend remain at 30,000 per occurrence deductible.
Questions from council?
So this will cover stoplights, correct?
Correct. They are currently covered on the
With-
policy.
With a $30,000 deductible.
Correct.
So we're gonna go to the 5,000 if voted in,
If,
right?
yes, if council desires to do so.
Actually, if I may, traffic signals are currently at 5,000.
Oh, flashing stop signs are not.
Flashing stop signs are at 30.
So previously, the conversation had been whether or not the traffic signals were at 30 or 5. The traffic signals, the controllers are at 5,000 currently on the policy. There is no change for you to consider unless you wanted to increase the deductible, but it is already at 5,000. The recommendation of staff is to reduce the four-way flashing stop signs from 30 per occurrence to 5,000 per occurrence, if you desire to do so, for an additional $2,500 in premium.
For clarification, are these the flashers that are ahead of the four-way stop signs?
AP is the expert on
Yeah, can you
all
explain what
things
these are?
four-way stop and traffic control.
Council Akhilesh Paul, these are flashing signs that you have either like 17th Street on Highway 65, you have flashing sign. I can't remember what it is. I think it's a stop sign coming close. And then on the north end, we have a warning for traffic signal, which shows that warning, there's a signal ahead. And then on Highway 92, I believe they were flashing signs for crosswalk, mid-block crosswalks.
Okay, yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yep.
Thank you.
We had an issue where those have actually been damaged before. I thought the original conversation was about the stoplights themselves.
Correct. And with the thorough research, we have we've had two incidences in a 5-year ICAP claims loss run.
And it cost us what to replace those
The
two?
first one, we had a $30,000 deductible. The second one is still an open claim. But it's under the $5,000 deductible. Whereas the first one was under 30. The policy changed in 23-24 renewal year. From 30 to 5 for traffic control signals.
What's the cost to replace the flashing sign?
The estimation is roughly 6,000.
And we've had to replace the flashing signs previously.
Correct.
Right, to correct, the flashing sign, no, we didn't replace any flashing signs, the pedestrian or the mid-block crossings. We had to replace the traffic signals that were estimated roughly around $35,000 on each occurrence. There were 2 occurrences in the last 5 years that we are aware of. So
So,
They-
but no claims specifically on the signs.
the flashing signs, there was one damage within the last 2 years. I remember one damage, but that was never replaced because that doesn't exist as a mid-block pedestrian crossing, especially on Highway 92 West.
So it's a matter of making a decision if we want to take on this added coverage in case something were to happen,
Correct.
or if we want to continue to roll the dice.
Correct.
But essentially, we're spending $2,500 to save 1,000.
Correct.
To me, that just doesn't.
Does make sense. But what was staff's recommendation?
That if you wanted to change, you could change the four-way flashers to match the per occurrence deductible of 5,000 to match the traffic signal controllers.
So given now that we know the cost to replace those flashing stop signs, and it's only $1,000 differences, was just
Yeah.
accurately stated, you'd basically spend $2,500 to save 1,000.
Yeah.
The math doesn't make sense, so recommend just to keep essentially everything as is.
I would agree.
With the original question being, are the traffic signals at 30 or 5? They're at 5.
Right. Clear as mud. So,
But thank you so much for
yeah,
doing
no,
that.
I wasn't, thank you for the explanation, yeah. So essentially, we're going back and keeping what we had originally done, and that's where we are. And is that the motion that was made then, or do we need to?
Just vote no on the motion.
Just vote no.
No.
Okay, stay where it is, right?
Is there a motion on the table?
Yep,
There's a
yep.
motion on the table.
Get one going to get guitar.
Well, clerk, call the roll then. We'll go starting this way and go back to the other one then.
Councilmember Beach?
No.
Soms? No. Lane?
No.
Reed?
No.
Selby?
No.
Armstrong?
No.
Motion fails, so let's have a motion that will succeed here then. So, no, we don't need one?
Nope.
Okay, we've already approved it, all right. All right, I'm gonna ask for a, next we'll move into SKF Incorporated doing business as Towner Shop for liquor license renewal. I'm gonna ask the council to make a motion to open a hearing here. So let's have a motion to do that.
So moved. Second.
Motion a second, clerk call the roll, please.
Councilmember Rabe?
Aye.
Selby?
Aye.
Armstrong?
Aye.
Beach?
Aye.
Soms?
Aye.
Lane?
Aye. And I believe we have some folks here to speak on the motion, or on a issue at hand, so. Identify yourself and go from there, and address as well.
Mayor, members of the council, my name's Brian Lawler. I'm an attorney at Wandro, Caney and Lawler. I'm here representing SKF Inc. This is Sunny Singh, who is the owner of SKF Inc. So first, I want to address, we got a letter from the city, and I wanted to address the provision from the city code that reads, a person holding a retail alcohol license and the person's agents or employees shall not do any of the following: knowingly permit or engage in any criminal activity on the premises covered by the license. The Singhs take this very seriously. They've gone to great lengths to train their, when they've had employees, to train them regarding checking IDs and abiding by the laws. They've had multiple undercover, underage purchase checks throughout the time that they've had the store, never failed any of those. They maintain 24/7 security cameras both inside and outside of the store. I'll come back around to that, but they've had multiple requests from the police department that they've provided that I believe have helped in other criminal matters identify suspects that have come in. Always been willing to work with law enforcement. Now, there's obviously an ongoing criminal case with a former employee. We have videos from that alleged incident from inside and outside the store, contemplated playing those for the council. I don't think you probably, they don't show anything, right? It's a woman approaches the clerk at the counter. The clerk goes into the freezer. The woman follows a few seconds later. She comes back out carrying a couple bottles of alcohol. He comes back out shortly thereafter, goes back behind the desk or the counter, checks her out. She pays with a card. She leaves. There's nothing remarkable about the videos. Ultimately, there are two people that know what happened in the cooler. Their versions of those events could not be more different. However, we believe this is a matter for the criminal courts to decide upon a full review of the evidence. We don't have that. That matter remains in court with that criminal defendant. Now, he is a former employee of the business at this time, okay? What we do know for certain about it is that when law enforcement came, Mr. Singh worked with them, gave them the videos, provided everything that they asked for, and that person's no longer an employee of the establishment. But what I really believe the council needs to know about this business and this liquor license, this is a family-run and operated business. For most of the time that it's been in existence, it's predominantly had two employees, Mr. Singh and his wife. The gentleman that worked there that was subject to that incident was hired December, I believe. Mr. Singh's wife had an ectopic pregnancy previously, underwent some fertility treatment, got pregnant again. They had their second child May 28th, little girl. And so back in December, she wasn't doing as well, standing, working, long shifts at the store. They made a decision to find someone and reached out to an acquaintance they knew who said, we know a young man who's looking for work. He's on a visa. He has a work permit. Now, Mr. Singh knows that system well and knows that means that person does not have any criminal record. If they're eligible for a visa and they're eligible for a work permit, they have no criminal background, right? So we hired him and then has gone through this experience and obviously is here with you guys today. As it stands right now, The employees at that store, Mr. Singh, his brother-in-law, that's his sister's brother, who's come and who's now living in Indianola, in an apartment that you have, right?
Yeah.
And they're training his wife's father, who has recently moved and immigrated here through the visa and green card process. So the plan going forward is for this to be solely family-run. It'll support multiple generations. He's got a 7-year-old son and a 7-week daughter at home. He's got his brother-in-law working there. He works there 9 a.m. to 10 at night
Yeah.
most days.
Before we open a long, now we just short the hours.
Now you're shorter to 10, 11 on the weekends. And then his father-in-law will be working there as well. So what we're hoping for is that council not rush to judgment prior to a full adjudication by the criminal courts. We have those for a reason. I can sit up here and say innocent until proven guilty, and we all know that. But there is a criminal law system. There's a not guilty plea that's been entered by that defendant. And we think before any punishment, and I understand it's not a punishment because a liquor license is itself a privilege, but we think before you withhold that privilege from this family-run business and cost multiple people employment in this community, that you would allow that process to play out through the criminal courts and find out what the courts and what the evidence actually presents as what happened that day. Anything that you think?
Why? So we just already short of the hour, so I don't have employees. So the thing is, I don't know what's in his mind. So, if I'm supposed to hire somebody, so if I'm gonna hire somebody later on, so.
It's gonna be family now,
yeah,
right?
So it's just a family, but I'm just saying that just an example.
Yeah.
So if I gonna check everything, so I don't read the mind, so what's in his mind, and I just trained him and everything and my power to don't do the stupid things, but eventually I don't know what's happened on that cooler that day.
No one, there's two people that know. Any questions from the council, Mayor?
Questions for them?
And we never had.
Let them
Sorry.
see if they have any questions. You're good.
Are these the only two incidences that's been?
Yes, that's my there's no infractions that have been at the store or anything like that. I believe there was a prior employee shortly after you opened who on his second day had an incident. And then there was this gentleman who 4 to 5 months in has an allegation that has not been adjudicated as of yet.
Can you say any more about the first incident?
The first incident was another visa and work permit.
Yeah.
So, and I don't expect, I'm not an expert on immigration law, right? But I do understand to obtain a visa and a work permit, they're not issued to anyone with a criminal record. And I think, I don't know any of you, so I apologize, but if you're business owners and you have someone that doesn't have a criminal record, you expect that's going to continue, right? And so I don't, other than only hiring family, which is your current plan, I don't know what other vetting, a business can really do to prevent employees other than making sure they don't have criminal histories of doing, actions that would jeopardize the business. Because certainly the last thing he wants to do is jeopardize the business. It puts food on the table for, his wife, his children, his father-in-law, his brother-in-law.
Yeah, so he's already, working there, is my brother-in-law. So, so I just tell him everything, don't do, something like that, so.
Bring
that's
people
all
up, check them out.
Yeah.
Check IDs. I'm sorry, did that address your question sufficiently? Do you have any follow-ups?
I was just wondering if the situations were similar in nature, or
I
if you
mean,
can say
on-
anything at all about them? I
only
know
s-
they're pending,
The first one is not. I don't know.
No.
That
the
gentleman
first
was
one's not, okay.
terminated years ago, and it hasn't been an issue, hasn't been an employee.
No.
This one is working its way through the criminal courts. I know, I'm looking at that docket, I think either in this week or the next week, I believe there are depositions of the parties. So sworn testimony under oath.
All right, Bob, did you have a question?
Yeah, and this isn't, I don't know, is it a fair question if we can ask Brian to come forth and speak about the activity? Can we do that?
Yeah.
I assume he probably will.
I was gonna let them have the opportunity, but you'll be able to have him come back up and have a little closing here if that's
Yeah.
okay. Let's go ahead and let the chief, have some discussion here as well.
Thank you all, I appreciate it.
Thank you, you bet, yep.
I refute nothing the counselor had to say. I'd like to add a little bit to it though. And I'm gonna say the same thing the counselor did. Everyone is innocent until guilty in a court of law. The first incident was March of 2022, and the employee was charged with assault with intent to commit sex abuse. That employee, I believe, let me get my paperwork in order here, was bonded out by sorry, I got a lot of paperwork tonight. By Anil Singh, is that correct?
Yes.
Is that a relation to you?
To
To you? Same last name?
thus.
What was the first name?
Anilrana? You can look at it.
That guy is my friend. He's from California.
Okay.
So that's not that guy.
Okay.
That's who bond.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Thank
the
you.
Bond guy.
Gotcha. So that was the first incident. The second incident took place on May 24th. And again, an employee was charged with assault with intent to commit sex abuse. The police department has also been to the I-Towner 47 times. Now, I don't want you to read too much into it because it's a variety of situations, but 47 times since its opening in 2021. 47 non-traffic times, 48 traffic stops that occurred on or near. So I can't attribute that to I-Towner. Some of it I can, but not all of it, for sure. My role is to keep the public safe. And with 2 employees at this establishment committing assaults with the intent to commit sex abuse, in my opinion, it's not safe. And that is why I've requested the denial of the liquor license. Does anyone have any questions for me?
Brian, so on those other 47 times, do you know what some of the calls were for?
I sure do. Some of them are burglary alarms, tobacco compliance checks, things that just happen at every business. There was a couple fraudulent activities that have to do with some type of machines in there, Bitcoin machine or some type of machine. Without pulling every case, all I can read you is the call type. Several suspicious activity calls. I can't tell you what that's about. Theft reports, which happen at all businesses. Trespassing, again, more suspicious stuff. Another 2 more fraudulent activities. A drug-related charge, not from an employee. Harassment.
Excuse me, the drug-related charge was on the premise?
Yes, but without pulling the actual report, my basis for this was the 2 assault with intent to commit sexual abuse. I did get a question, I think it was from Councilmember Sones, about other activity, maybe it's Councilmember Beach, I'm sorry, about other activities that have happened. 47 times in 4 years.
Any other questions for the chief?
Who posted the bail on the second one that just happened?
I do have that as well. I believe it's Mr. Singh. Singh? Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
So the owner of the business posted the bail?
Yes. More importantly to me, the person on the liquor license posted.
Any other questions for the chief?
Do we know how this May incident has progressed through the court?
Great question. I do have updates on both of those. The 2022 one, the suspect did get deported. However, there is still an active warrant for this suspect in case reentry into the country. And the one that we're going through now, the 2025 incident, there's been an ICE detainer placed on the subject. However, this person still is in custody and there are court proceedings that are ahead. But it's up to the county attorney if they're gonna drop charges, just deport, that's outside of my purview.
He is detained by ICE currently?
There's a detainer placed by ICE, yes.
But he's in the custody of the county, is that correct?
He is not currently in Warren County and I cannot advise what county he is in.
Okay.
I know, but I can't tell you. Per the county attorney.
So-
Any other questions for the chief? My intent is to give council one last shot here, so.
I just have a question. They have work visas, but they're being deported. Is that because of the criminal activity or other reasons?
Outside of my purview, do not know.
So we weren't able to confirm whether or not the visa was for that.
I do not know their status. Your question is the criminal activity the reason why the deportation? Or is it because
They're using a fake visa.
Yeah, I cannot answer that.
Is there any other questions?
Chief.
Thank you. Council?
Chief.
I'm just wondering if the business owner's attorney has anything to add.
I just wanted to point out, we don't have a breakdown of the 47 times, but I know there were mentions of burglar alarms, theft reports where the business itself is the victim. Over 4 years, that's once a month to a business that, by all accounts, businesses that sell alcohol tend to have trouble associated with them, right? That's why they have to come in front of you guys to be approved. Other than alcohol and tobacco, there's not the same type of strict licensing that goes on for any other business. So 47 in 4 years with, a significant portion being not related to any wrongdoing or cited even as to being wrongdoing on the part of the business, I think it's important to note. Again, and the chief agreed, innocent until proven guilty. He noted that there are two of the same charge from two different people. I would note that one of them remains alleged, the other one was never adjudicated. So we don't have any finding of criminal guilt. And so I think it would be premature to take away someone's ability to operate a business without an actual finding of guilt. So I just hope the council will weigh that when they're making their considerations.
Thank you. Any questions for the council?
So I guess my question would be is what do you as the owner do to verify that these employees that you're hiring are actually here with proper visas and that they are truly who they say they are?
Yeah, so he just showed me, so I just checked that routine, so I don't have a big business, I don't have any agency to hire or just a normal person.
You check his I-9,
No, I check his
visa paperwork.
That work permit, so he has a card for the work permit card.
Okay.
Does
You're
that
not-
have a photo on it?
Yeah.
Yes.
But you're not checking that in the immigration system?
So I thought that's why he has that card, because I don't have, I don't know how I can check through the immigration thing, so he just present me the card, so it's his photo, and this look like a legit, I have a.
I don't think, Chief, correct me if I'm wrong, have there been any allegations that either of these people were not here legally?
Not that I know of, no. I don't know why the first one got deported.
Well, my understanding is largely when you're here on a visa, if there's allegations of criminal activity, your ticket gets pulled, you go home, right? Very
well be.
Yeah, that's my understanding of the process is, it's less common that there's a wait and see approach with them. So I think that probably explains the first one. The second one, I'm frankly, I think a little surprised he hasn't been yet, right? But I don't think there's any allegation, and the chief's not aware of any either, that these people weren't here and working legally, properly vetted.
Yeah, so I have.
Yet that can't be confirmed. Is that correct?
I'm trying to understand what you would like us to confirm.
That, well, you just said that it hasn't been confirmed that they were here.
Well, it hasn't been alleged.
Right.
That either of them are here unlawfully. Yeah, he had a social security number and a government issued work permit, work card with his photograph on it.
Yeah.
So no one, the police, ICE, they've detained him because he's an immigrant here under a visa, right, is what ICE does. But none of them have alleged that he's here working unlawfully.
I present him to ICE.
Yeah.
So, because I just give him a bond and they send me a letter, ICE send me a letter, so I bring him to Des Moines office.
Yeah. To go deal with it correctly.
I guess my concern with the biggest concern would be the fact that this is the second instance, not the first.
And again, I would say it's the second allegation.
Okay.
Right?
Second allegation.
And I'm happy, like, if you would like to see these videos, I don't want to opine too much. And I certainly don't want to, it's not my job to say who is right and who is wrong on that, right? The videos show nothing out of the ordinary. I'd be happy to pull it up on my laptop, and if I can put it on the TV.
If I'm correct, it's because there's no cameras in the cooler.
There's no cameras in the cooler, that's correct.
So.
But, like, the victim walks out of the cooler far in advance. The reports are that she was barred from leaving and had to barge her way out. The door doesn't open in any way that looks like it's barging. She walks calmly over, picks up the beer, goes back to the counter, sets the beer up. He comes back out of the cooler. She hands him her card. He rings it, She picks up her beer, puts the card in her pocket, turns around, walks out. There's camera in the parking lot. She's not checking over her shoulder. She just strolls out to her car, drives away. If you think it would be helpful to see it in weighing your deliberations, my thought is that we have we have criminal courts to make those determinations with juries and judges that weigh the evidence that is allowed to be reviewed in determining if someone's guilty of a crime.
While that may be, I mean, Iowa code states that the applicant must be a person of good moral character.
And not one of these allegations relates to Mr. Singh other than he hired someone that possibly made a bad decision in a time period that his wife was 5 months to 9 months pregnant.
One issue, I guess, in the allegation and the situation with the May event is that he
Bailed the person
Yes.
out.
And this was someone from out of state, right, that he knew through a mutual acquaintance. It's another gentleman in the Sikh community. It's not a large community. It's not a large community by ratio in India. And so he bailed the person out and then promptly took him to immigration up in Des Moines. And he's been detained by immigration since then. But this person didn't have anyone else that he could go to in Iowa, let alone, in central Iowa, let alone the rest of the state.
But, I mean, having nobody here, I mean, he would have been detained by ICE if he had just stayed in jail. He didn't
Very
have to be
likely.
bailed out.
No, he didn't have to.
And if it were me and someone I knew that I had hired was accused of anything like this, and I had any doubt of whether it happened or didn't happen, there is no way I'm bailing that person out of jail.
Maybe that's for discussion of the council after the hearing, after they made their statements. Rather than getting into a back and forth.
Right. Doug, I was gonna ask you a question while you spoke up there. If we deny, is that the end of the process?
No, it goes to the state. Really what a municipality does is just recommends. And the municipality has the duty to do the investigation, and then they basically say thumbs up, thumbs down, and then the applicant still has a right to go through the state. So this isn't the final step.
Are they able to still sell during the appeals process?
I'm not sure. I think you can ask for a stay of the revocation.
I think while there's a pending application, I believe they're on a temporary.
There's no more questions for council. We'll take some more questions. We have other questions and discussion among the council here. So, thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you all.
You bet. Thank you. Any other discussion or anything, Doug, you want to add to
Close
this?
the public hearing.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to close public hearing.
Second.
Clerk, call the roll, please. Vice Mayor.
Appreciate the time that everyone spent tonight speaking to this issue, both on the council over there as well as Chief. Just to kind of summarize and wrap up, this is a difficult decision that is presented before the city council tonight, and certainly understanding of that. On one hand, you do have the opportunity, as state law grants pretty wide latitude in this situation. I think there's plenty of evidence here that would allow council to deny in certainly good faith or recommend denial to the state in good faith. In conferring here with Doug, just as council knows, this was a one-year renewal. So this could also, as an alternative, be an opportunity for city council to put Mr. Singh on notice that, there has been a number of incidents, allegations here, and that any future negative activity at the location would be viewed unfavorably and taken into consideration at the next renewal period over the next year. does sound as though Mr. Singh is changing some practices and really making it a family-based business. So again, taking that year could provide the city council an opportunity to determine if those changes have been effective in any negative activity that's happening at the establishment. Taking into consideration all of this is Mr. Singh and his family's livelihood as well to not be taken lightly, of course. So I just wanted to summarize that and make sure city council knew they had several options before them.
Let's close the public hearing here first, and then we'll ask for any other discussion. So clerk, call the roll, please.
Councilmember Beach?
Aye.
Stones?
Aye.
Lane?
Aye.
Rabe?
Aye.
Dalby?
Aye.
Armstrong?
Aye.
The public hearing is closed, or is there further discussion from council?
Better have a motion in place.
I was gonna kind of get some discussion, and then we'll see what the motion ends up being, so rather than having to vote down another motion, so if that's okay with you?
That's fine.
Okay. Any further discussion?
I think it's important to note that, as legal counsel pointed out, we're not the body that determines right and wrong here from a criminal activity standpoint. This has to do with just the approval or denial of a license. And so things like the 47 times, those things to me are more relevant than the two instances. The two instances are very relevant, but to try and determine what happened in those two cases, guilty, not guilty, I don't think that's obviously weighing in on this much for me.
So Doug, can you go into more detail for the Iowa Code 123.340 on what that means and what is required, isn't required? You know, because we're hearing, you know, innocent until proven guilty, which is 100% true. But does that even matter with the Iowa Code on a liquor license? Does that have to be done in order to go down the path of what this code does?
No, you are not an adjudicator of guilt or innocence. You are simply to take, and you place a lot of the burden and responsibility on your police department. You are to determine whether or not this person is a person of good moral character who is entitled, and Mr. Waller didn't say anything that was incorrect. It's not an entitlement, it's a privilege to have a liquor license. And you determine at that first stage whether or not that applicant is entitled to a liquor license. The fact that you can rely on just the fact that allegations have been made and the same two allegations have been made to determine that you believe that this is a problem and that they're very serious problems. So it's frustrating for us lawyers because it's so nebulous. What is a person of good moral character? How bad does it have to get? But there's no bright line. And so you just have to weigh all of the things, all of the circumstances, what Singh says and what's happened there to determine whether or not you think it meets that threshold to get that privilege. And I wish I could give you, if they do this, you don't give it. If they do that, they'll be fine. I can't say that. But yeah, you don't make the determination of guilt or innocence. So as Councilman Lane said, you can take into consideration the calls to the establishment. You can take into consideration just the fact that these serious allegations have been made against employees, and take that into consideration that it's not something that you want. And again, there's another process for them to appeal. So you can take it all together and make that determination that's not the good moral character of someone to have a liquor license in the city, or that all that is not the applicant's fault, and that you're going to give that applicant. The good thing is these things are for a year. There's a revocation process; it's rarely done, but it's for a year. So it's always a short leash anyway. Or just give the message that you'll tolerate nothing else from this establishment. So you can do what you think's best.
Chief, could you go ahead and give your recommendation one more time?
The whole reason we're here tonight is because my recommendation was for denial of the liquor license.
Based on the code 123.3 moral.
Yes.
And you were relying on the city ordinance, which provides for criminal conduct.
Yes.
I,
The seriousness of the allegations. Like I said, I'm not the judge either, you know, just like you guys aren't. There's enough probable cause to file a charge.
So Doug, just to clarify, you mentioned a revocation process. If we approve, there's a process to revoke.
It's pretty, you'd have to be pretty serious. Okay. It generally isn't gonna be used. So you're doing it for a year.
Second question is then we could deny here, but the state could still approve?
Absolutely.
We have to make a motion for the positive here and then vote either yes or no, correct?
Well, the motion could be to deny as well. I mean, it could be theoretically.
The way it's written, this is consideration of approval.
Yeah.
You're right.
I'll go ahead and motion.
Okay. Make a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Motion and second. Any further discussion?
I just want to remind everybody that we do have a duty to this community to keep the community safe, just like the police department does. And the fact that this is happening in my ward, it's a little close to home for me. Especially considering I live 3 blocks from this establishment. And it's not just these 2 instances. And it's not just your normal everyday theft and things like that are getting reported from there either. I think Chief mentioned a few fraud investigations and things like that that had taken place there as well. Those are things to me that should not be taking place, and there should not be that many of these instances in a business that's been here 4 years.
Other comments before we vote? Hearing none, clerk will call the roll, please.
Councilmember Armstrong,
No.
Beach,
No.
Stones,
No.
Lane,
No.
Reed,
No.
Dalby.
No.
Motion fails, the liquor license is denied. Move on to item 3 in old business, discussion direction regarding agreement with Kyakota for animal control. I will open that up to staff first.
Mayor, council, it's me again. Just want to give you a little overview. Sorry.
We're gonna get tired of you tonight, or
You are
up in
gonna be
the
tired
morning?
of me
Okay.
tonight, yes. Brevity is my friend, I will be quick.
Yes, okay.
I'll never get tired of you.
Yeah, well, tell that to my wife. Okay, funding for Kyakota was not in the FY26 budget. Staff was tasked with finding alternative models for animal control. Norwalk and Carlisle were engaged, and both cities had a different approach to animal control than Indianola's approach. Both of these cities handle aggressive, unvaxxed animals who have bitten or attempted to bite a human or another animal. Staff engaged legal with these other cities' approach, and the models are appropriate under state law. Today, officials from the city and Nathan Rasko with Kyakota, we had a very positive meeting today. It was a very good meeting. We discussed what's in your packet, and Nathan felt that ARL is better equipped to handle the aggressive animals, and some of the reasons he gave were the age of the facility, the age of the kennels, and some liability to staff. Did I miss anything, Nathan? City officials are looking to explore an arrangement with Kyakota for non-aggressive dogs for police-involved circumstances. Staff believes this model will mitigate public safety concerns, fulfill Indianola's obligations under state law, and be more cost effective. Staff's recommendation, which is in your memorandum, is to terminate the current agreement with Kyakota, pursue a policy prioritizing enforcement of catching dogs which are known to be unvaxxed, aggressive, or bite involved, and working on an agreement with Kyakota, which is the most preferred, we want to stay with Kyakota, or ARL to shelter these captured dogs. Jake is happy to answer any questions you may have.
So the question I had, I believe I talked to the county staff this morning. We have an opt-out clause, so because we didn't opt out of that, is it 60 or 90 days that we still will be paying Kyakota? 60 days?
60 days notice.
Yeah. So for at least 2 months, we'll continue to pay them this time period then. That's what, about $4,500 a month, is that correct?
Chief, I sent a couple questions over for you, just to try to help clarify for people to be able to know when we say prioritizing for unvaccinated, aggressive, how do we know if they're unvaccinated? I just want to make sure that, a call comes in that we're responding to the things that should be responded to.
Yeah, every animal call is treated like an investigation anyway. We show up, if it's a aggressive dog, non-aggressive dog, as we have in the past, and especially if the dog is running at large, we try and find information on the dog, chip it. But your question is, how do we know if it's vaxxed or unvaxxed? We ask the owners when we find them, especially if it's been in a biting incident with another animal or a human, because then there's a different process that happens, a quarantine process happens. So it's just like any other investigation we do.
So.
Supposed to have tags on them too, but
Well,
most
right,
of
I
them
know.
don't.
I have dogs, so. So if we get a call, dog's just loose, vaccinated, then what?
We're not in the animal
We're
catching
just-
business anymore.
They're, wait for a neighbor down the road to come home and find their dog.
Both Norwalk and Carlisle are doing this successfully. Norwalk's done it for a year, Carlisle just, I think, 3 months. Dispatch or an officer will give advice that they can catch the dog, they can bring it to ARL. I know if we're not under contract that Kyakota will not be an option for just dogs running at large.
So you have the dog, you've confirmed that it is vaccinated. You're just gonna turn it loose on the street?
If we have the dog and it's not being aggressive, if we can get it chip read or there's information on it, we will make arrangements. But otherwise.
But if you don't know whose dog it is,
we're not gonna catch dogs.
I guess what I'm saying is you already have the dog in your possession.
I mean, I guess there are other options we can consider. Our Facebook gets a pretty darn good traction.
Sure.
So there's always that option. And I'm sure you guys see those all the time, dogs running on
Yes.
West Boston, and
Right.
It seems to be fairly successful.
Yeah.
Because you always see those happy recoveries.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Just to at least put it out there and then.
Chief, what were you estimating the cost on a yearly basis to be then if you move to this process?
I mean, that's a very hard question to answer. I know that Nathan has to get some numbers and some further discussion with his board, so I can't answer that right now. But I know ARL, for the aggressive dogs, has a fee laid out, and it's, if it's a 10-day bite quarantine, it's $200 for animal. Now, this is for Carlisle, not for us. We have no agreement, no conversation yet. Boarding fees, $40 for the first day, $17.50 for each day. It's gonna be significantly less.
So Chief, just another question. So.
Dog related?
Yeah. ARL comes, gets the aggressive dog. Dog has an owner, picks dog up 2 days later. Who's footing the bill? Are we footing the bill, Or is ARL invoicing dog owner?
If we call,
Mhm.
my assumption is, I haven't read this entire
So it would be
contract.
spelled out in the contract.
Huh?
It would be spelled out in the contract.
Yeah.
It would be spelled out in the contract.
Just because, you know, part of some of the discussions we've had, right, is people don't want to pay property taxes like they've been paying. And so with that comes less services provided, and some of the discussions we had back in like February was the animal owner should be responsible for paying those fees. So if somebody's coming and getting that dog and it's got a dog owner, I would say send that invoice to John Doe down the road who came to get his dog 2 days later, and not to the taxpayer who has said very loud and clear, tired of paying high property taxes.
Fortunately, I wouldn't be the signee on the agreement. It would be either the mayor or the clerk or the city manager, so.
Technically, they should have to pay that fee in order to get their dog back.
One would think.
Right.
Unless they've invoiced us like that or something.
I think that's contractual information that can be done.
I didn't know what we knew on that, you know.
We have great attorneys here, so.
I guess my question is, and Nathan, this isn't fair, I know, but 60 days, what's the likelihood that you'll be able to work with the board at Kyakota, which I really hope works out. I think being able to manage this process locally is a much better solution. But it seems to me if you don't think it's possible to have an answer within the 60 days, I don't know that I'd say, well, let's go ahead and roll the dice. I mean, I look at that as like buying insurance. If it's gonna take longer than that, or you don't have any idea, particularly this time of year, I don't know your decision-making body and how easily it is to get a decision like that made.
Are you, so you're talking the difference between going with us or the ARL, is that what you're?
Yeah, the meeting you had this afternoon, sounds like it went well, and that gonna try and come to some kind of an agreement with the city.
Well, we, as a board, we had discussed and we decided that as far as handling aggressive and rabies watchdogs and that you would be better off to go with the ARL.
Right.
Yes.
But having any other.
The other agreement we're talking about?
Well, he had mentioned that maybe like on a traffic stop or something like that. And yes, I can get in touch with my board, or with our board quick and get an answer on that.
Is that something you'd be able to have in time for our next meeting?
Yes.
The 21st?
I just want to make sure that I'm clear on this. So say Becky down the street calls Kyakota and says, hey, there's a loose dog in my neighborhood. You guys would no longer come pick up that animal.
Correct.
At all.
Correct.
We'll take dogs that the police department drops off that are not aggressive.
Dakota?
Potentially.
Potentially, yes. Police-involved incidents. A traffic stop where we arrest the person, search warrants, every search warrant we go to, they have 5 dogs. And if we arrest everyone there, we need care for the dogs. Stop it, Mr. Ray. So, yeah, situations like that where we're already involved and we have no option and the dog is not aggressive.
We're basically treating it like an à la carte type of.
Yeah, per basis, yes.
Per basis.
Yep.
That's something that Nathan needs to run by his board and come back to us on.
Well, I'm gonna make an assumption, which I know is a dangerous thing to do. But if we're already to the 7th of July, I would assume that we're paying for July.
Right.
So if we go 60 days from now, we're gonna be
2 more months, yeah.
paying for September.
And
And we're gonna be paying for September if we do it at our next meeting. Why wouldn't we wait and see if Nathan can come back with an answer, and then we know what we're dealing with and move forward from that point?
Well, the bottom line is that, correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm not taking any side here, I'm just trying to, the issue too is that the contractual arrangement was one that we had taken out of the budget, and so this is money that is continuing. You're right, though, we're gonna pay through September anyway. And so I mean, I don't know, are we looking for the fees and the amount of money that it's gonna cost from Nathan? Is that what we're looking for here? I guess I'm a little confused in what you're asking him to come back with for information.
No, I think we wanna make sure that we know that we're covered, for all of the services that we need.
Okay.
Didn't we get feedback last time that for the current fee, it's all changing anyways, though, what we agreed to previously, right? I thought. Like, there's no after hours and stuff like that anymore?
But all of that got changed in today's meeting. It's
We're
now
still
an à la
operating under
carte.
the current contract where they do after hours.
Because we have not given notice.
And they haven't given notice.
Contract rolled over.
So the new agreement would be this à la carte, and one thing I don't know that you mentioned is that after hours, the PD would potentially have access to take dogs into Kyakota themselves,
you.
so
Yeah.
that they wouldn't have to drive to ARL.
For the non-aggressive dogs, part of the discussion was after business hours, we have a patrol truck now, we get a cage, and we would possibly, if the board agrees, have access to the building where we could put the dog in the building after hours, feed it, water it, go back on patrol.
And they would use their body cameras just like they would entering any other property to protect us and Kyakota.
So I would say from what I think what Chief is looking for here is, I would say, per the recommendation of Kyakota, they don't feel that they're equipped, Nate, if I'm wrong, correct me here, they're not equipped to handle the aggressive, unvaccinated dogs. And so my direction would be for Chief to work with ARL to start working on contract language and cost for us to take those animals, while then also working with Nate on how much it could cost to potentially house dogs related in police incidents. Fair, Chief?
Non-aggressive dogs.
Non-aggressive. Fair?
You summed up my thoughts.
With regard to the current contract, though, is it a 60-day notice or is it a 2-month notice?
60 days.
So if we canceled it tonight, there would be a savings as opposed to waiting 2 more weeks. So I think we're maybe misinterpreting the
Good
month
point.
versus the 60 day.
Very good point.
Sounds like we're all moving towards an equitable solution here. This is something that isn't accounted for in our budget, so I would assume that canceling the contract sooner than later, while keeping the impetus on solving all this, is probably better. Part of the recommendation that's on the screen.
So we are then paying a daily rate, not a monthly rate?
$4,500 per month, I'm gonna defer to you.
Yeah,
Like, do we prorate it?
be prorated.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So in the event that we had the contract with Kyakota for police calls that involve an animal that's not aggressive, and that animal goes to Kyakota, and that person gets out of jail and they wanna come claim their dog, is that person paying Kyakota to claim their dog? Or are we paying?
No.
That'd be in the contract. I did look at another one that ARL has with somebody else, and it says in there that the owner comes forward, that the owner
Would be
pays that
responsible
fee.
for it.
If after a certain period of time, the owner does not come forward, then they bill
Then
the city.
The city would be billed. And I'm assuming Kyakota is aware that that's terms that we would like.
I shared a copy of an agreement with them. But we haven't talked to specifics on what ours would hold it in.
Okay.
We do have one other person that asked to speak on this issue, so if she wishes to give your name and address.
Do you not live in the city limits, is that?
I don't think it makes any difference. But
Okay,
it's-
okay.
You're
I just
you're
have
here for the meeting, it's public
some
comment.
questions.
You're welcome to comment. But we need your name and address, please.
Yes, it's Beth Adams. I live at 8235 Highway 92.
Okay.
And I just have some questions, and I apologize that I'm not fully up on all of this, but just some questions for the council to think about. If the police, are the police transporting it to ARL, or is ARL coming to pick those up? I heard like we purchased a vehicle. I understand that we're trying to cut costs, but there was something right there that, we purchased a vehicle to transport the animals. If we are transporting them to ARL, do the police really have time to be doing this? What if a police officer gets bit by one of these animals, or work comp? All of these things that I'm thinking about that are costs to think about as you're working through that contract. So I don't know that you necessarily need to answer it, but it's just concerning that I know Kayakota does a wonderful service, but I understand that we're cutting costs, and just concerns that I have about the alternative. So, no, you can answer those now, or just something to think about as you're negotiating the contract.
I just want to clarify, we didn't purchase a vehicle to transport, and we
Okay.
wouldn't have to purchase. We already own a vehicle.
Okay, good.
So it would just be a kennel that we would have to purchase, correct, Brian?
Yes. Yep, we purchased the trucks last year.
Yeah, okay. So just thinking about
The
the
trucks work for the
cost.
police department, so they have the ability now to do other things too, so. But that's a good question.
And your workers' comp question is a good one. That's something that I had thought about too. One bad incident could far exceed the 54,000.
And, they're police officers, that, I don't, that's, I don't claim to know the training, but it's like, that's necessarily their job, is to handle animals, so I just have concerns about that, but I suppose you encounter that quite a bit in your day-to-day activities.
We do. And, may I?
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Part of what ARL did with the other communities with it, they provided training out with the catch pole, training on aggressive dogs. So before we would endeavor into that, or embark into that endeavor, we would.
So it sounds like, if I can sum up here a little bit, based on Josh's comments too, that we are in a prorated situation. Does it make sense then to make a motion to cancel the contract and then bring back at the next July meeting, if possible, other contracts that we can assume with ARL or with Kayakota, and move from that direction? Is that kind of what I'm?
I don't think you need a motion, you just need to direct staff to give notice.
I know that's what Josh said. I'm a little uncomfortable canceling a contract without knowing if Kayakota's board is going to be okay with the things we talked about. We talked with Nathan. We did not talk with any members of the board. And Chief has made calls to ARL. He has not yet spoken with them. So that all needs to play out. We do have Carlisle's contract. It's a recent contract, so we assume that everything's gonna be the same. I think that conversation needs to happen, and that contract needs to start moving in motion before we just cancel ourselves out of a relationship that we have, not knowing what Kayakota's board's gonna say. I know it's
Or ARL.
Or ARL, yeah, it's $2,250 and an insurance policy with Kayakota for 2 weeks.
Need a direction, folks.
Mayor, if I may?
Yes.
Just because I know the direction was very specific, if we are going to enter negotiations and a contract with ARL for aggressive dogs, I would also like us to include non-aggressive dogs in there, so we have options just in case Kayakota isn't interested in this arrangement. And regardless, even if Kayakota is interested, then we just basically, we would have two places, but our preference would be to keep them local. But I just wanna make sure that if we're gonna bring a contract forward for ARL, I think it would make sense to have both aggressive and non-aggressive in there for just more options.
In case they are, in case
Good idea.
Kayakota's full. too. That's a good idea.
What'd you say the difference was between a September 7th cancellation and a September 21st cancellation? I think it's $2,100 if I'm not mistaken, is that right?
$2,250 half the month. I agree with Melissa in the sense that, you know, I don't think I'd want to jump off one lily pad if I didn't have another one to land on.
Gotcha.
You don't know how to swim, and I just think that's a rolling the dice. And I'm not judging any of the organizations or anything as much as how do we know ARL is going to want to take on? And I also think of just taking an officer out of this community, have them transport dogs. There's a price on that, I think. And I understand the budget and where we are, but that gives me pause. And if we've got a 2-week window here to at least have more information and know where this might be taking us, I think would be helpful. Particularly with Josh didn't even know about the conversation this afternoon. It's hard to expect anybody to vote on that when you don't have all the information. So I think that's why I said if we can push this down the road 2 weeks, it might serve us well.
And the other thing to consider, is this with ARL coming here to get the dogs or us going there, or do we know?
In the contract?
So it's still up in the air. I mean, another thing to note is every one of the police officers said they wanted no part in the handling of dogs and transporting them. So I think that's something we need to take into consideration when negotiating the contract.
I do have a question, I guess, for Brian and maybe Nate. But if Kayakota's not interested in aggressive dogs, I think we would have to handle them regardless. Or what is Kayakota willing to capture aggressive dogs? So I think we're gonna end up handling the aggressive dogs regardless.
So even if we stayed with our current contract, you're saying you guys would not handle aggressive dogs anymore?
Correct.
So either way, we're still going to be having to have this conversation.
Right.
And then to that point, you had mentioned that it would require a change in job description, which would have to go back through the union.
Not necessarily, I need to read. Rude of me.
Sorry.
Stay up here.
I'm gonna be here a while.
Getting your steps.
I need to read what is in specifically the officers and sergeants and lieutenants' job description. Usually there's some type of catch-all of other duties as assigned.
Duties, yeah.
So I'll see what we have in there. For us, the bitey, aggressive dogs, it's not that often, fortunately. Yeah, thank you. So, you know, we're not talking an everyday thing. I think we called Kayakota maybe, I think it was 49 times. Just so happens I have my folder right in front of me. 49 times in 2024. But all those weren't for aggressive dogs. So the number's far less than that.
Right.
So my direction then would be kind of going off Bob, Melissa, and what Jake said of, I think we look at going to ARL for both options in case Kayakota doesn't want the non-aggressives or they're full, etc. So that we kind of have the two spots and then wait for 2 weeks to know what we are potentially looking at before we cancel a contract.
So you want some sort of outline, if we were to enter a contract, this is what they're agreeing to. It's gonna cost this.
I think it'd be a good thing to know. I mean, because what if they tell us no? There, I was like, no. and then we're back at square one.
I
And we
think
don't
we're
know
back
to,
at square one either way though.
Regardless, because they won't take them and.
well, yeah, that's for the aggressives, right? I mean, but you're back at square one for everything else.
Mayor and council, if I may, would a signed letter of intent from Kyakota and ARL be maybe what you're looking for, to show, intent to enter contract?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, what I'm hearing so far, and I haven't heard anything to the negative, is that we will put this on the 21st agenda. I'm not hearing any differently.
I think it's important to note that we want to keep our existing relationship with Kyakota. And today's meeting was very positive. Came together pretty quickly, so that was a win for the community. So even though we have to scale back on what we're doing due to budget constraints, you never know what's going to happen in the future, so.
All right, so we'll bring it back on the 21st based on Steve's comments. I think there's some good things, and if you've got a memorandum of under agreement or some kind of agreement in hand, then we're fine with that, so.
I like it.
No need for any kind of tabling or anything, we're good with that? Yep. Okay. All right, let's move on to discussion and direction regarding member services coordinator position at Indianola Wellness Campus. We are now in new business. Thank you, folks, for coming, those of you that were here.
Thank you, Chief.
Yes, thank you, Chief. Go ahead, Doug, it's up to you, or up to you.
Just summarize quick, I know you guys have the memorandum, sorry, Doug Byland, Chief of Culture and Recreation, I didn't forget that part. Been a while since I've talked to council. But as we look to align IWC operations more closely with the city departments and our long-term vision, staff's recommending the Indianola Wellness Campus undergo strategic staffing restructure. I know it's in your memo here, but with this, the creation of a member service coordinator position, we'll reconfigure the full-time membership operation coordinator and a part-time group and the part-time group exercise coordinator roles, while realigning the responsibilities to streamline the operations of the facility. So the main thing we're looking to do here is try to create that new member service coordinator position that will be responsible for hiring, training, scheduling, and performance management of the member services staff and the learn and play staff. They'll be majority of their time out in the front desk and as a frontline team member, which allows for integrated oversight, leadership, and consistent customer service. There will be reduction in the amount of part-time member service hours worked as a result of this. As we went through you have the numbers here that talks about the budget effect. It will result in $40,000 less from what we currently have approved in the budget this year in the IWC for wages and benefits as summarized, as you see there. I don't know if you have any other questions. That summarizes it really quick.
Can you talk about, I know there's, is it Diane moving into a different role?
That would become the right one. Membership operation coordinator, sorry.
And what does that role do?
So she'll be that position will be in charge of the core membership, the programs, facility management system, the weekly performance and membership reports, customer relations and retention, quality assurance, process corrections, be a point of contact for the Friends of IWC and our capital donation campaign. At the same time, then the group exercise coordinator will assume the supervision of personal trainers, which makes sense with group exercises. Lines that up. Kind of similar to how we kind of do it at Parks and Rec, where she'll be doing a lot of the financial reporting, a lot of customer retention, membership questions. Position, I should say that.
Yeah. It's kind of falling in line so that.
All part of a big, long plan, right?
Yes,
Not gonna
right.
get it all done in one day, but we sure would like to.
Right. I do know that I was at the first meeting of this discussion and the staff was very happy with how this works out, and it's gonna alleviate some of the stress points.
Hopefully alleviate stress and make the facility operate a little bit smoother for members to have good enjoyment and opportunity up whenever they go there.
Right.
And save a little funding.
Right.
Which we can hopefully put back into the facility with the members more back because of that.
So direction from council is
Good to proceed?
good?
Yeah, move forward.
Good to proceed?
Yeah.
Got your direction.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ned.
Chief, you get to come up again. Discussion and direction regarding the open position office for the officers.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Brian Scher, Chief of Police. Enclosed in your packet is a memo for the backfill of a police officer position. Just gonna give you a little brief history. Due to staff turnover at the lieutenant position, interim promotions have been used to fill leadership roles, creating an open police officer position. Staff recommends filling the open police officer position and conducting promotional process to fill leadership roles. So what that means in English is I have an open lieutenant that left, but we fill that with an officer and we promote a sergeant to lieutenant and an officer to sergeant. In a nutshell. The lieutenant's position is, both supervisory positions are incredibly important. The lieutenant's position is lieutenant in charge of all of patrol, and the sergeant's position would be a sergeant in charge of one of the shifts. We bid shifts, so we don't know where that shift would be, but I guarantee it won't be days, it'll be mids or nights.
Any questions for the chief?
I'm sorry,
He looks at me.
did you say that you have people in these interim roles today?
I have people in interim roles, however, that is a temporary interim basis. There's a process we have to go through to promote. We have to open it up to everyone, and everyone is, if they're eligible, there's certain things you have to have 2 years on, you have to have certain things. If they're eligible, everyone has a fair shot at the promotional process.
Do you have to open it up to outside?
No,
Or is it
these are
internal?
both internal promotions, yes.
Any other questions?
What's the average length of time to hire an officer? I know.
Fortunately for
Question.
us, because of the last backfill, we have 3 people eligible to be hired. 3? I think it's 3, don't quote me on that, I haven't looked at it in a while. So we're already doing backgrounds on 2 of them, one for the last backfill, and hopefully if approved tonight, we can just move right on to they're successful. There's a lot of steps left, but if they're successful in their background, polygraph, doctor's physical, psychological test, and then we can make a offer. We got a ways to go, but.
You have something to say?
No, Ron said he was good with proceeding. I'm fine. I'm good.
3, 4, 5, 6, got your direction.
Thank you.
Yep.
I'm done for the evening.
Okay.
We'll find a way.
We'll see.
Don't go anywhere.
Nope, sweatshirt's going on. I'm done.
All right, joint fuel facility, discussion direction regarding the future of the joint fuel facility. AP and Jackie's got some information here too, and
Chief, what's your thoughts on the joint?
Really? I was gonna say.
Whatever AP says.
thanks, Nathan.
Thanks, Nathan.
Thank you.
Council Akhilesh Paul, Public Works Director. So we are here because about 2.5, 3 weeks ago, the Warren County has officially notified us again that they are leaving the facility starting from July 1st. So previously, we were the joint users along with Warren County, School District, City of Indianola, and IMU. So with the Warren County leaving, we have to decide whether to continue using this facility. So with the renewed agreement, if we want to continue, it has to be every entity except Warren County here. So as a part of this, we have reviewed what our usage has been, and I have some budget numbers here to share with you. So we have looked at the past 6-month fuel usage to see that we have we use as a combined entity for school, IMU, and the city of Indianola, we use roughly about 24,000 gallons of unleaded gas and about 35,000 gallons of diesel. And then last year, James Oil was awarded the low bid to supply the fuel. They give the DOT rack prices. There's some delivery fees for that, but they were awarded by the county to provide fuel at that facility. So as a part of this, we have also checked that as all combined entity, we use roughly about $300,000 by all entities that we use towards fuel, both diesel and unleaded gas. There's a split of roughly, based on the fuel bills that county has provided, there was a roughly split of about 39% usage by city, 13% usage by the IMU, and roughly about 48% usage by the school district. In addition to the fuel cost, we have estimated roughly about $30,000 of operating expenses, and I'll be going in detail about that. Thank you. So I told you that we have roughly about $30,000 of operating expenses. In addition to that, we have also looked at what savings will we have in case if we go with the current contract with James Oil versus the last week's prices for fuel prices at farm services located west of town. We have noticed that we'll have roughly about $43,000 of total annual savings if we continue to use James Oil. But then we also inserted the operating expenses that we have estimated. Then we noticed that we have roughly about the net savings that we'll have annually is roughly about $13,000. This is with the assumptions, there's a few assumptions that we took, is that this is with the assumptions that the cost sharing will be based on the new agreement, new 2080 agreement, which was based on the cost estimates that we had, not the estimates, but the cost that we had last calendar year. So, sorry, when I say calendar, last fiscal year. In addition to that, we also noticed that the city's portion of savings will be roughly about $5,000. What this means is that, this number, $5,000, does not include administrative costs by city staff. It also doesn't include future capital expenses that can be occurred for operating this facility. So what we have seen is that the expenses and savings are roughly breaking even with with all the savings and the operation cost and all of that. So So we currently have two options what we are providing to council. One is either to continue operating the joint facility where the expenses and savings are roughly breaking even, which requires a new 2080 agreement, or we explore other options with outside vendors and evaluate the cost feasibility for that option. So we are recommending option 2 just because there's the cost that we are seeing is almost breaking even. There's more work for staff that will be involved with option 1. That's all I have for the presentation, sorry.
So you'd be on option 2, a contract with the private fuel suppliers. So what does that entail really? I mean, would you envision someone bringing tanks and letting us use them at the fuel facility, or just literally to go into farm service and that's what you're calling the private fuel? Okay.
Yes, yeah.
All right.
There's a few different people in town that might be able to provide that service.
And IMU and the school would have to do the same. And how much extra work is it for staff? Like when we say for option one, it's requiring extra work, like I think we kind of knew that going into it, so, I mean, not unexpected, but how much extra work?
So there's very,
Talking 10 hours a week, we talking an hour a week, we talking 2 hours every month? I don't know, I don't know.
so there's a minimum of 1 to 2 hours, 1 hour at least inspection on a daily basis. In addition to that, we also need certifications that's needed for operating the fuel facility. And also there will be administrative costs to process the invoices to every other department. So at least on a monthly basis, we would say 15 hours or more by staff are minimum.
I guess I struggle here, because we knew this, knowing that they were going to leave. So why are we shocked by any of it? Like that we were gonna have to have certifications and do the work to operate it, when we thought we were just going to operate it all the time to begin with. And now they've left, so now I feel like we're acting like this was unexpected. But in reality, it was expected. We knew they were leaving for quite a while.
I don't feel like they're saying it's unexpected. I just think they're providing us the details of what they now know. And it's up to us to make the decision on whether we think it's worth the savings or not.
But see, that's why I said I feel like, because they now know, we've known, we knew this was going to be the case, that we were going to have to operate, learn how to do all of the things to operate the fuel facility.
I don't
So
think it
that's
was
why.
known that we would have to do that, because we've always had these two options and we've never gotten the direction on which option to go with.
Because part of me feels like, are we putting IMU and the school in a pinch now? If we were to say, well, let's do option two, when we have a facility that is functioning, that honestly needs fuel now, and Mac's gotta run buses in a week,
Thursday.
Thursday, because apparently quicker than, holy crap.
So wait, the fuel facility is empty right now?
No. Correct, yeah. The
Yeah.
fuel
Gas.
facility is for gasoline, and I did find out, did have a conversation with Superintendent Paul this afternoon. The vast majority of the buses are running gasoline, not diesel, so essentially they are not able to utilize the facility right now for gasoline. I will say, talking to another community partner who utilizes the joint fuel facility, our analysis that we pulled together at this point is based on the retail advertised rate at farm service. I found that there may be opportunities for negotiations there to make that significantly cheaper. So all the analysis you've seen shows the city possibly breaking even, but that's based on the retail rate, which it doesn't seem, it seems like there may be an opportunity for us not to pay the retail rate as well.
So that would be a question I had in the vein of still trying to work together as much as we can. Absolutely can negotiate small private contracts with fuel retailers for preferred pricing. And I mean, I would think that we wouldn't be just doing this on our own. We should hopefully be having discussions with our other partners here if there's an opportunity for all of us to go to the same place and get, if this is something that we have to go down this road, get beneficial pricing for every entity, every organization. I mean, that was the point of this to begin with.
And Councilman Barib, I just want to say that that is a conversation I've had today with both IMU and the school district to see if there is opportunities for us to collaborate and take advantage of economies of scale.
I guess I thought that we did get a discount on fuel. So are you saying that we don't?
He might be able to speak to this better. I think we get a discount to buy it for the fuel facility. I don't, at the facility we're currently fueling now, I don't believe we get a discount just going to farm service at this moment because we've not negotiated any sort of arrangement.
It's not a discount.
But if they come fill our tank, we get a discount per gallon?
Yes.
It's a bid, it's a competitive bid that they have given us, a low bid matching the DOT rack prices.
And that ends December 31st.
And then you renegotiate the rate based on how many
Right.
gallons you're buying.
Right.
You have to bid it, public
Mhm.
bids needs to be posted, so.
Sure.
How old are those underground tanks that are we're still using?
I know, I knew I would get this question. It's definitely more than 25, 30 years. The last time the agreement, 2080 agreement was 2010. Is that right?
Yeah, that was just renegotiated.
Renegotiated, so.
It was in the 90s.
Yeah, so more than 90s is what I've heard, so I don't have the exact age, but.
I know the guy that basically was a project manager on putting that in, and I'm thinking that was probably 13 years ago, maybe somewhere in that neighborhood, 14, somewhere. I can find that out though.
What's the life expectancy of those tanks?
So I've asked this question to our fuel service provider and also to Unified, who provides services for inspecting. They have said that they generally tend to last if it's maintained well. They'll have a life 30 years, but they'll keep on working well as long as it's maintained and repaired. They'll keep on working, but personally, I know that everything's got a life. So it's got to have a replacement plan. We need to plan for replacement at some point.
Didn't the most recent inspection show that there were some pretty hefty needed repairs?
No,
There's different tanks, those.
Yeah, those are the
Okay.
above ground ones.
Okay.
AP, check with Unified, they're the ones that put that in, put the new ones in. Check with them when the last time that was done.
They do it annually, and
Well, I know, but I mean, when the newer tanks were put in there, when they completely took out the old tanks and
yes,
put in the new ones, will you check with them and find out when that was done for sure?
yes. It should be also available in the Iowa DNR website as well.
Yeah, probably.
So if the tanks are currently empty,
They're not.
No,
what
they're
are we
not.
doing?
So we have stopped the usage because we are going to damage the fuel pumps if it goes below the threshold. It's roughly around less than 1,000 gallons of unleaded fuel is when we stop the usage of them.
So I guess my question is, why is this just now coming to us? If we're that low?
So I think I can answer that. As AP said, the county made it aware to us on June 15th that they were planning to officially walk away come July 1st. And with the notification that they were stepping away from the operations of the facility, they also then informed us that, by the way, the tanks are low and need to be filled. So then the question became to us as well, and we had posed the question to them saying, well, given that we would need some time to assume ownership, is there any opportunity for you to possibly do one more fill for us to kind of get us through? Their engineer had responded, they thought it was in their best interest to not do that and kind of stop that relationship by July 1st, with the tanks essentially going under or hitting that 25% on July 3rd when we had to cease those operations. Because this was not budgeted, staff, we did not have the authority to order the purchase of the fuel to go ahead and have them refilled, just because it does not fit within the FY26 budget. So that's why we suspended the operations on July 3rd to bring this item to City Council on July 7th, and then depending on the direction that we receive tonight, if council chooses option 1, staff of course will proceed with that. We'll go ahead and order up fuel, and we'd estimate by the 10th or the 11th, we would have fuel back in the tanks and they would be operational. So that would be kind of the process of it.
But we won't have anybody trained to operate the facility by that date, would we?
The online certifications takes a few weeks. We will be ready. We know where the sites are. Online certifications can be acquired. Staff has got some training from Warren County. They're continuing to provide training. So I'm pretty confident that within the next few days, if the council chooses, we'll get the training.
Let me ask you this question. Let me throw this out there on the table. What happens if we go ahead and start the process and order the fuel, and in the meantime, we move to option 2, which seems to be financially the best option overall. But we order one more shot of the tanks and the fuel and kind of eat the cost this particular year and share it obviously with the 3 entities, but we do that until this fuel then runs out. But in the meantime, we need to have agreements in place, whether it's with the new Quick Start, with Casey's, with FS, with whomever we go out to bid with, and can supply that. I don't know if that's a possibility or not, just throwing it out there.
I think just one of the comments to make that, as Jackie astutely pointed out, our 2080 doesn't contemplate the environment that we're currently in. So those other entities, the city would be taking the risk on the 30,000 essentially. If they chose to participate in this, they could. Candidly, again, I've talked to a couple of partners today, and this is, again, I don't fault them for this at all. They basically said they would do the value proposition on their own and decide if it would be worth sharing those costs and sticking with this facility. So the best advice I could give to council is if we continue to operate the facility for any amount of time, I would just go into it under the assumption that we would be responsible for all of those administrative costs. And if the partners in a new 28E were to willingly share that, that would be great. I just wouldn't want to set up a false expectation. Gotcha. I think maybe a question for Doug too is that, you know, the current 2080 that we're kind of working through also says that at this time Warren County would be responsible for a portion of the dismantling, because that's what's supposed to happen if the operator were to pull out. It's not really transferable to new operators. So we're trying to put a round peg through a square hole a little bit. But if we were to negotiate a new 2080, would that relieve Warren County's responsibility for the dismantling portion of this?
That'd be my position, yes.
So there's another
So it's
liability.
catch-22.
It's not again, I just want to say, it's not a good position we find ourselves in.
I guess I'm asking the same question everyone else is how did we find ourselves here when February 28th, there was plenty of notice given that they were vacating and we should work towards this. I know that Steve, you were there and AP, you were there.
Yeah, I mean,
Did something transpire in between February and now that gave you the impression that they weren't leaving?
no, I mean, we certainly didn't expect 2.5 weeks of notice by July 1st. There's immediate expenses, the largest expenses to order the fuel, and then there's also some initial cost with the software. There's certifications. I know we talked about it during our budget. There's a need for adding that. We talked about that. I don't think we have allocated specific funds because of the unknowns. I know we talked about it during our budget internally too, you know. So yeah, there's some unknowns that we didn't know till we were given the notice, actual notice on July 1st. But there were some knowns. Obviously, there were some unknowns that we are seeing, that we have learned during this process. So
if I'm understanding this correctly, FS and no other fuel providers have been spoken to as of yet, correct?
I mean, staff reached out to FS, can they deliver? And they said, yes, they can do that. We have not formally spoke to them about the process, exploring what discounted price will they give us if we come in bulk quantities. And
That's my
They could
question is
handle
why we haven't done that yet, because I remember having this conversation back in February I believe it was February, when we started discussing FS as an option. Or maybe it wasn't in February, it was actually when there was an issue with the tanks, I think last time, and PD was having to fill up at FS.
Casey's, right?
Was it Casey's? Okay.
Yeah, there were
But,
claims at different places around town.
But it was brought up then on figuring out what we could do to discuss, you know, fuel pricing and things, so. I guess for me, I would like to see us have an actual answer before we go spend all kinds of money on the fuel facility, if we can in fact get a much better negotiated price for not only us, the schools, and IMU. And take some of that burden off of us.
Just having a personal account, you get a discounted rate off of what's advertised, so I can only imagine the volume that's gonna be used will be a greater discount, which already puts us well below the 4,000 that we were going to save before administration costs, so I'm not sure why we're still having conversations about this. I think we should just move on with option 2.
Because, I mean, I guess for me, it's because of the fact that and I'm just gonna say, because we're pretending like this jumped up on us and we just knew about it.
I guess I don't see what the big deal is.
I would like to kind of see what we could get negotiated in option 2, but I wanna see what our partners can get negotiated in option 2 as well.
You wanna go together, is that what you're asking?
Yeah, cause look, at the end of the day, the tax dollar is the tax dollar, right? And, you know, you guys might wanna throw something at me, but let's say we break even, but I can save an option 1 on school and IMU, that's a win for my dollar. All right, regardless if we broke even on the city side, if I saved with the other 2 entities, it's a save for my dollar. But in option 2, what are we gonna save? Am I gonna save more of the dollar in option 2? And we just quite frankly don't know that. So I don't wanna jump just to option 2. Just because it sounds great and that we can save money. If our other partners can't save money, are we saving money? At the end of the day, with the overall tax dollar, right?
So what you're saying is option 2, but go together with our partners.
I think you have to.
Price it.
I think you have to.
The other thing you gotta keep in mind, and Jackie raised this point, and it's a good point, that the contract 2080 agreement that's still partially in effect, but it requires the county to dismantle the facility. And so when you're talking about dismantling an underground storage tank system, you're talking about significant dollars that would have to be shared. And that's gonna impact the ability of our partners to have savings on that facility. So, I mean, somewhere along the line that's gonna happen, and if it's sooner rather than later, then that's part of that discussion. But to your point, I think you have to throw that factor into the total cost of whether or not the taxpayer's saving money or not. So I guess I don't want to give an opinion here in the sense that you folks have to make your decision. I don't want to vote on this, but I think you got to look at that option as well as significant.
And if we write a new 28E agreement, then that vacates the previous 28E with the county.
We are
and
then
we
responsible.
Fully responsible for the dismantling of it.
Depending on how we word 20, you could share that cost potentially. Depending on how you word the 2080.
Well, it depends on whether the partners want to share in it
Right.
too. I mean, if it's not going to be,
Regardless, it goes from 4 to 3.
Yep.
yeah.
They're splitting it, so just real quick, you've had some initial conversations with our partners in this. Everyone's open-minded to option 2, I assume. It wasn't like an immediate slamming of the door. I don't know what, I'm trying to pretend like Mac's not right here.
Yeah, no, again, in my conversations today with.
Version, so.
What's that?
I only got the Reader's Digest version this afternoon.
Yeah, so in talking to Superintendent Paul as well as Chris Planks over at IMU, both, I did broach the topic, Councilmember Armstrong's point of doing this collectively if possible, so we could leverage our joint buying power. Both of them did indicate an openness to doing that, understanding that the school is going to begin running buses here in the very near future. It certainly puts them in a challenging situation, and that was definitely shared with me in that process. So I want to be empathetic to that. I fully acknowledge it is not an ideal situation. But as staff has presented this tonight, I also don't want us to rush into something that's gonna lock us into potentially, $300,000 worth of fuel being budgeted, $30,000 of one-time expenses. So I don't want to pretend that it's a good position we're in or it's a good recommendation, but I also want us to be conscientious to not just jump into something and then have to live with those consequences, because when you make quick decisions like this, it's pretty easy to make compounding mistakes. So it's just an opportunity for us to get a good grasp of where we're at, weigh the options on the table, and make still a strategic decision.
Yeah, so regardless, we're all probably going to be buying fuel somewhere for a little while. We are already, right? So that's the situation we find ourselves in. It is what it is. We can't change it. We are trying to avoid rashly jumping into potentially something else. I think it's a great point, Christina, that got brought up, and you emphasized it as well, that like, it would be great for it not to be our responsibility to solely dismantle this facility inevitably when that happens. You know, and maybe this was a great idea and a huge money saver 25 years ago. I'm sure it was. Things change, times change, right? And okay, you know, and exploring option 2, as long as we're kind of already there. So it is what it is. We can apologize all we want, but it is what it is. If just how that works, that math, if it saves one party money, it saves all of us money. It's just gallons times dollars, right? So there's not really an opportunity for anybody to come out ahead or behind on it. We're all gonna sink or swim together. I do think it's important to keep working together, and we absolutely can negotiate together to do better.
Mr. Mayor, if I can pose a question?
Absolutely. You want to come on up?
Why not?
You know who you are, but for the record, would you please tell us who you are?
Mac Rankin, I serve as the board president for the school district. Appreciate your time with Superintendent Paul today, both of you. I understand this is kind of complex, and so I don't want to enter into the decision lightly by any means. I think that the district would very much appreciate a new 2080 where we can source fuel together, whatever that looks like. My question for staff and the council would be, in the interim, you know, as we've got multiple vehicles that are going to need regular fuel here starting later this week for our year-round kids, and then obviously in August for our traditional kids, if there's some sort of potential workaround to continue working with James Oil in some capacity, whether they've got tanks that we could rent and keep on the same location to where we don't have to provide some sort of credit card or basically it would alleviate our need to provide all of these employees or vehicles with a way to purchase fuel in the interim until we can figure out what moving forward looks like. If we've got the option to put a couple of 1,000-gallon tanks on the premises that we could at least temporarily fuel the buses with, that would be very much appreciated, whatever that looks like. I understand you guys are in a tough spot and we've got to figure out what makes the most sense. And at the end of the day, it is what it is. But just knowing that we've got about 100 gallons of fuel on each of our buses at any given time, and we're hoping to get 10 or 12 miles to the gallon out of those, we've got a little bit of time before we're going to have to start putting fuel back in them. But if we can come up with a temporary solution that would alleviate our administrative needs, and if you guys have, you know, similar needs from that perspective, it might make sense. And I don't know how we would account for that, if we can put meters on the tanks temporarily, or if we need to have individual tanks for the city and IMU and the school, however we need to do that. I would just ask that we maybe collectively try to think of something short-term that we can do in the meantime.
I got a brief overview of the software. I think it would have to be individual tanks because we don't have access to the software, is that correct? We're not fully trained on it yet?
So we are trained with the software. The software expired July 1st.
Yeah, so we would have to
renew
purchase
the
it.
software. There's DNR requirements to take ownership of that. There's insurance requirements. There's definitely going to, in addition to fuel expenses, training, roughly about $10,000–15,000 of commitment that we have to do immediately to take ownership, and there'll be expenses towards that.
So then I guess back to Mac's question, is it even possible to have standalone tanks?
They would just
I mean,
be
something like-
separate. I'm thinking like farm
we do,
tank.
like at a farm, yeah. Like we have
Just
one.
something to get us by temporarily.
Does it have to be with James Oil?
Well, I'm just wondering, since we already have the contract in place with them through the end of the year on pricing, if that would be an option. I don't know if they rent tanks or not.
I mean, it would be an insurance and liability issue.
And the cleanest temporary option is probably just use the tanks that are already there because there's a system in place, but then it just becomes a matter of having to pay all the one-time costs associated with it. The school districts, again, I'm not sure exactly the nature of the request, but if you're recommending you wanna do something on your own separately on your own property, that would be an alternative option, but it seems like you're asking to put a temporary tank on where the current fuel facility is.
Let me ask, Ron, maybe you can know this more than I do, but jobbers have trucks that they might have available, theoretically could be available during the day, that could come in and just sit at the fuel facility. It's a tank truck. Take it right off the truck. There'd have to be some kind of recording system that we'd have to have there, but.
Well, the trucks have a pumping, or a meter on them.
Right, but I know, but you'd have to have some kind of recording system to record who that was and how many gallons they took. So that unless the school district says we want this, but I'm hearing that we've got police cars and other things too, but I don't know if James Oil has an option for that short term. I don't know if we have to go with James Oil in this particular case. If there's somebody else that could provide I don't know how many gallons, one of the 500 gallons one of those trucks hold, I don't know what they hold. But I don't think it's gonna be a solution of, to your point, Mac, I don't know the DNR laws as well as maybe AP or some other folks do. But to put a separate tank there, all of a sudden now you got a bunch of issues you gotta deal with. It's a truck. I see Dave back there shaking his head. No, you don't want a tank on the facility. But a truck would be okay, a job truck would be okay, would that be correct?
The accounting part of it is
Right.
really dicey because it's fuel's taxed, it's tracked.
Right.
It's not a simple.
But I don't know, if it's a big job or they're gonna have more than one truck, and I think, again, I know it's personnel, it's time, those kinds of things involved. Short term though, you could have one for the school and one for the city, and you'd still track it based on that, or IMU is city, IMU /
Volumes you're talking about, you'll need a SPCC plan or a spill prevention plan to go with it because you're not.
It seems like we're wildly speculating on a bunch of solutions that none of us know anything about.
Right.
Yeah, and you're taking their trucks out of.
Right, so like, all I would say is this, is like, we have an issue.
Yeah.
It's clear we have partners that wanna try to figure it out with us. It would seem to me that we just need to give staff direction to figure it out with the experts, with the people that can do it, right? So for me, the direction, and I'm open to having say this poorly and amending it, but direction would be continue to work with our partners on all temporary solutions so that the pain is minimized to the extent that it can be without increasing our liability in the level that we're not comfortable with, while exploring equitable long-term solution that works for all parties involved. It would seem, given the environmental concerns and the long-term concerns of potentially exiting that 28E without keeping the county as a partner in dismantling that facility, it would seem unwise to do anything to jeopardize that partnership at this time. So option 2 is likely the best option, as long as we're doing it together. Staff do it together. I don't know, that's oversimple.
That's well put.
I think you're 100% on target. I think the two staffs need to get together, you're exactly right.
Much as I want to sit here and listen to us all talk about jobber trucks and that for a lot longer. I'm not smart enough to know the answers to any of those questions.
I'm with you.
I am as well. So Jake, do you know where you're headed?
Yeah, I had communicated earlier to both Chris and Superintendent Paul that I would reach out to them with the decision or which direction we were going tonight before the evening ended. So I will still fulfill that obligation, or that obligation I put on myself, and then hopefully with their response, we'll be able to get together first thing tomorrow morning and start thinking through
You guys
what our
on
alternatives are.
board with that as well?
As long as we are finding the best economical solution regardless if it's option 1 or 2.
Christine?
I like option 2. My only consideration here is I work in an environment where we're trying to de-risk all the time, and keeping a fuel facility with an aging tank poses risk. And if your savings is $4,000 a year, but in 10 years we have to spend $1 million to replace that tank, we are not saving any money whatsoever. So that's my long-term thought on the whole process, but.
You comfortable with that?
Well, and I guess decommissioning it and not carrying it over and putting the burden on us is attractive as well.
I think that, obviously, from what I'm hearing, number 2 is the option, and then Jake is gonna get with the city and, or with the school and IMU as quickly as possible and try to work out some solutions that might be available.
Temporary.
Yeah, temporary, until we get a 2080 in place and everything else, so. You have your direction? Okay. Mac, thank you for your comments, by the way.
I appreciate you guys' time.
Yeah. We're moving on to resolution setting public hearing for August 18th, 6 PM regarding the first budget amendment for fiscal year 26.
We don't need to do that anymore.
What's that?
We don't need to do that right now. if
Well, that's
we're not
obviously
proceeding
because of,
with
if we were
the
gonna
joint
do that other
facilities.
item, that's correct, thank you very much. City managers report.
Yeah, excellent. We have the Community and Economic Development Director position open. That will be closing on July 15th, and looking forward to beginning interviews with qualified candidates shortly thereafter. We have about 15 applications at this time, certainly trying to bump that up closer to 20 would be ideal, but there are certainly some promising prospects within the bunch that I'm certainly intrigued to get to know better. As Mayor Richardson had talked about earlier, we did have the Discmania Pro Disc Golf Tour event held at Pickard Park from June 27th to 29th. We had over 1,700 spectators attend that event and 156 players. And we did have a first-time winner, both on the men's side and the women's side, at that event. So very well attended, and kudos to Doug and his staff for all that they did there. Want to give a big shout out to Chief Scher for coordinating and Officer Caleb Fullerton to providing an excellent ride-along experience for me this past week. I appreciate the time that was taken, and especially Officer Fullerton's additional effort to explain software processes and policies as we talked along our drive. We also want to send a sincere thank you to Jamie Parrott and the Indianola Main Street team in refreshing the paint along Salem Alley. This project was made possible through many hours of volunteerism and a Keep Iowa Beautiful grant. Lastly, just a reminder on the website redesign, that the city's website redesign survey remains open through this Friday. Be found, and more information on our website. The direct link to that survey is indianolaiowa.gov/website-redesign-survey.
Thank you. Just a quick update, discussion action regarding future agenda items. Abatement is on the September, which one do we say? September 21st?
15th.
September 15th, agenda. Have we planned anything yet for the August agendas yet on items that we've talked about so far?
Tentatively, there might be an annual report and or community items.
Okay. Any other items anybody want to bring up?
Where are we with Kentucky traffic light?
Yeah, I can certainly give somewhat of an update on that. I did meet with the developers of that project a week or so ago. It was more of an introductory meeting, but that the traffic signal certainly did come up in that discussion. The shortened version of it is that I think there's a number of considerations that need to be taken into account on how that traffic signal would get financed, looking at the logistics of it, warrants, engaging the DOT on the likelihood that a traffic signal would get approved at that location. Certainly, there's a lot of variables, and that does include the development of the site as a whole. Currently, their development agreement is for 3 lots. So again, if we were to go to the traffic signal, that would take an amendment to that development agreement to combine those 3 into 1. So the summary is that we're having ongoing negotiations and discussions with the developer. At the end of the day, based on a litany of variables that are in play that we're hopefully going to be pulling together here, or I anticipate pulling together here, a good number of those this week yet. We'll re-engage with the developer, kind of look at options and alternatives, and ultimately, I envision that coming back to council in the future, either in the form of a development agreement for consideration.
Any other items for the good of the council? Take a motion to adjourn. Moved. Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are